You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
U.S. Cellular has noticed the way we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu's on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like, which is ironic. Which is why U.S. Cellular created Us Mode, to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, I want to start today with the Jordan Love update, of which there isn't one. But I was thinking about it, and I feel like there's a very obvious thing sitting right out there in front of me that I just didn't pick up on until it just dawned on me yesterday. So I've mentioned that it constantly seems to be more and more positive, right? Like, yay, everything's great. Jordan's going to be back in, it turns out it's not the worst case. It's 3-6. Well, that's good. And it sounds like it's going to be on the more positive side. So it's 3. And Packers are even like, it might not even be 3. And it's like, dang, this is crazy. And the problem we made, or the mistake we made, many of us, myself included, is that we just believed them. Look, let's put it this way. Let's say it is a grade 2 sprain, like they say it is. Grade 2 is 3-6. And I believe when they say that they're going to be cautious with him, which means if they're 97% sure he's ready, he's probably not going to play. So how do we make that make sense? Well, think about the tough spot the Packers are in. It's not impossible that putting him on IR is the wrong decision. Because if you put him on IR, that's 4 weeks. What if he is ready in 3 weeks? He probably won't be. 4, 5, 6, in that range, very possible. But what if he is? You only get so many designated to return IR slots. They've already used some of them. They don't want to use it on a guy that could somebody that is critically important that could potentially be back in 3 weeks, even if it's only like a 10%, 20% chance. So you've got a hurt quarterback. You're thinking he's going to be back, let's say we're planning on 6 weeks. We don't want to put him on IR, though. What do? Well, what you do is you start saying we feel really, really, really optimistic. We think he's going to be back. In fact, Malik Willis will be the starting quarterback, assuming Jordan Love doesn't get cleared, starting throwing some doubt out there. Why? Because of your opponent. This is what they do every single time. This is why, by the way, the 49ers absolutely lied when they said it was a game-time decision, and they got caught doing it. So if you didn't see this, and I barely saw it, apparently, and I think this was in the post-game, the running back who had a good day, everybody wants to talk to him, and he's all excited, and he's not really thinking, and he says he found out on Friday he was going to be the starter. Well, the 49ers said that they didn't decide until game time, which is why everybody, my son and the guy that I was playing in fantasy football, got completely screwed because they didn't have time to change out Christian McCaffrey. I was playing him twice in my 2 leagues. I still lost one of them. So they had Christian McCaffrey with 0 points. It was a game-time decision, but it wasn't. Why? Because they wanted to lie. It's an advantage to make somebody game plan for a person who's not going to be there. If you at least have to dedicate a little bit of time to the possibility Jordan's going to be back. Now, granted, I'm guessing the Colts are smart enough to say he ain't coming back this week. We're willing to risk it. We are not game planning at all. But they're going to try. They're going to say he's looking good. We'll see how it goes. He's a maybe. Things are really looking positive, and we'll see. I bring this up, I'm not 100%. It's not impossible. But I bring this up because what this is doing, although it's strategic and it's a chance to give the Packers an edge, and I don't blame the Packers for doing it, it's going to lead to massive amounts of frustration among Packer fans, and then you're going to hear things about, for example, the training staff and why are they doing this and all this kind of stuff, right? This is now my frame of reference. If it turns out he's back week 1, freaking crazy, great. I guess it wasn't, they were, first of all, apparently wrong about their diagnosis. It was not a grade 2 sprain. You don't come back from a grade 2 sprain in a week. But I'm fairly confident that that's essentially what's happening because, again, it makes sense. If it was a grade 1 sprain, then he could be back this week. If it was a grade 3 sprain, he would have been put on IR. It's a grade 2 sprain, which the range is possibly IR. He could be back before IR. Most likely he would have been back after. In other words, it's probably the best idea to put him on IR, but we don't want to use up another spot. And it's, if he's ready week 3, he has to be out there. So we're not going to do it. So then at that point, again, it becomes, what do we do about this? And I think the strategy is we just remain overly optimistic. We say he's way ahead of schedule. We pump that out to Ian Rappaport. We'll see. He might even be back before 3 weeks. You got Matt LaFleur saying, hey, we haven't ruled him out this week. Nothing's official yet. We need to wait and see how he's doing. He's doing really well in his rehab. He's walking fine. He doesn't need a brace, any of that stuff. We got to do a follow-up, but we're feeling really optimistic about it. As of right now, we're rolling with Malik, but we're not doing anything official yet until Jordan's, but again, I'm guessing they are 100% positive he's not going to go. They're just not going to say it. So the rest of the team knows, although if the coaching staff is smart, they're telling the rest of the team the same lies they're telling us. Otherwise, you put them on that's what the 49ers did wrong, is they went and told the guy on Friday. Well, now you're making him responsible for lying for you, and he's the one that's going to get in trouble by everybody for telling the truth because he was supposed to lie, and he didn't lie, and now he's the bad guy. You're putting him in a really crappy situation. So if you're going to lie as a team, lie to your whole team. You can lie to Jordan, too. I mean, again, it's ugly, but don't put players in a position where they have to lie for you. You know what I mean? They probably will anyways. I don't know. Bottom line is, it's a thought that I had that makes a lot of sense. It makes significantly more sense than it is a grade 2 sprain and he might be back in a week, which is not really a thing that happens. Well, these are NFL players and they have the best medicine and everything. I understand, but I'd have to, obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't know this stuff, but if we're talking about potentially a partial tear and trying to get everything back to 100%, I just don't know that you're going to get this thing to just heal. I mean, it's partially just a biology thing. It's not about how many, leg lifts you can do on a machine or something, or with the rubber bands. I don't know that that's going to help heal a torn thing. I mean, that's a thing that naturally occurs, and there's going to be like a scar there, and it needs time to heal and strengthen. I don't know. Not trying to ruin everybody's day, and I don't think anyone really expects him back this week, but I just, I'll leave that possibility, what is that, think the worst, hope for the best, or whatever. That's kind of where I'm at. And I'll be honest, I do kind of want to put you in that frame of mind because I know what the alternative is. I would rather have everybody, if he plays this week, reach out to me and say, see, you were wrong, you frickin' idiot, but he played this week, than the alternative, which is continue letting everybody feel optimistic and then get super pissed when he doesn't come back until 5-6 weeks later. Which, we'll just go with the 3 to 6 and hope it's on the early end of that. But I'm really not going to believe any amount of overly positive news from the Green Bay Packers. It's really just going to be week to week. And they're going to say week to week. They're not going to, and that's the thing. We're going to be finding out very, very last minute on Jordan Love every single week, as late as they think they can push it and get away with it. I don't know what all is involved in that and whatever, but I think they're going to be doing that every week, which means giving the fans hope every single week and then crushing their dreams. And then it's just going to be massively increased frustration. You get what I'm saying? So I'm going to let go of that. I'm going to embrace Malik. We're going to forget everything I ever said about him when he was in college or with the Tennessee Titans. He is now a great elite football player that's going to help us win football games. That's what's going to happen. So, speaking of great football players, or not great football players, by the way, actually a couple things. I mentioned, when you look into the stats, there are some things that could be extremely positive that maybe PFF is not super positive about. I've got a few more, actually, and one of the things that you can do to feel better about your team's performance is look at the Eagles and what they did. Before we get fully into that, though, I want to bring up an interesting little thing that I noticed. There's been a lot of talk about, and it's weird that it gets highlighted. Like, a lot of players didn't give up any sacks in week 1. Like, a lot, including several Green Bay Packers players didn't give up any sacks. They're not getting praised all over the internet. For some reason, Lane Johnson is being praised for giving up 0 sacks in the game. Sorry, I pushed the button there. I'm back to my old recording thing. I'm so sick of using everything else that doesn't work. I'm trying to just get better at realizing that there's a lag and working around it. Hopefully it sounds okay. So CBS put this on social media. I saw other people retweeting it or whatever, and I didn't really think too much about it. And then other people were saying, they were showing a clip of Rashawn Gary running around Lane Johnson and saying, well, what about this? And I thought, yeah, it certainly looks like it. They probably just put it on the running back because Saquon was in the backfield and he just stepped up. But the more you watch it, you realize that's absolutely not the case. The Lane Johnson, first of all, for whatever reason, was sleeping on the line of scrimmage. Everybody moved, including the defense. Lane's just sitting there for what felt like a full second. It probably wasn't quite that long, but in the NFL, even a half a second, you're dead. For whatever reason, he was daydreaming. He didn't move when everybody else moved. Rashawn was able to just get right around him and get to the quarterback. You could also tell by the way that he really was, if he was just trying to get a hand on him or whatever, just to help chip so that and then the running back's going to pick it up. There's a certain way that you do that and then get back. He tried as hard as he could to get around there and he couldn't. And then the way he kind of like tried to find work on the other guy that wasn't his responsibility while his head the entire time is watching the guy run right to the quarterback knowing that was his bad. And then the body posture, that was 100% on Lane Johnson. There's no debating that. Like, he just knew as soon as that thing got off, he's like, oh crap, I just gave up a sack. He knew that. But I thought, all right, well, let's see what PFF said, because CBS said he didn't give up any. So I wanted to see what the deal was with PFF. So I looked, and sure enough, they said that Lane Johnson gave up no sacks. And I thought, okay, well, they must have mistakenly put it on the running back. You know what's hilarious? I'm looking at their blocking page, which, shows everybody. Offensive line, tight ends, running backs, everybody. Guess how many cumulative sacks they gave up in this game? 0. They didn't credit anybody with a sack in the entire game. The only amount of leeway here, and I have been trying to find it. I don't know where the heck it is. It's in here somewhere. But there is a... where the heck is it? Here it is. I found it. Maybe this is the answer. Let's see. Is Philadelphia in here? Cleveland. Yep. They blamed Jalen Hurts for that sack. Now, I was thinking about it. The only other option is that they blame Jalen Hurts, and they have a page under quarterbacks. If you look under position, under quarterbacks, allowed pressures, and it shows what percentage of their sacks and pressures and whatnot came under different responsibilities. So quarterback, offensive line, and then they go through left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, ITE, which is the tight end on the end line, or other, which would presumably be a running back. They put, under the one column of quarterback own pressure allowed, they put 1 sack, 1 hurry, 2 total pressures on Jalen Hurts. That is psychotic. In what universe is an unblocked pass rusher getting to the quarterback in probably In fact, I can tell you exactly how long it took because I think NFL accounts for it. No, this says 4 seconds. That must be taking into account something else. Time to sack, 3.9. That's not possible. Hold on. I'm going to get my stopwatch out, and we're going to do this officially. Wait a minute. Did they delete the post? NFL on CBS deleted their post about Lane Johnson giving up 0 sacks because Packer fans lit them up. All right, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the clip of him. Give me one more second here. I've got it at exactly 2.5 seconds. I found the clip. Started it when I saw the guys move. I stopped it as soon as he touched the quarterback. Not how long it took for him to get dragged to the ground, even though that was like 0.1 second. It's pretty instantaneous. But as soon as he touched him, I pushed stop. 2.50 is what I got. They're saying this is Jalen Hurts' fault. But if you think that's like, well, yeah, PFF sucks, which I'm going to get into that in a second. I decided to go over to SIS. Guess how many sacks SIS says Lane Johnson gave up? 0. What are we doing here, boys? What are we doing? And I can't check SIS for whether the quarterback or running back gave it up because they don't go into that stuff. And NFL Pro doesn't have any offensive line stats. So that's all I've got. I know that PFF blamed the quarterback, and I know SIS did not blame Lane Johnson. 2.5 seconds, right around Lane Johnson. Bro, this is the easy stuff, man. This is the easy crap. This is really annoying to me. Since we're bringing that, I've been kind of alluding to this for a while, but haven't found a good time to lean into it. We might as well do it now. US Cellular has noticed the way we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu's on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like, which is ironic. Which is why US Cellular created Us Mode, to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from US Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
There was a article written by Arif Hassan. He has got his own Substack, or at least he contributes to one. I'm not sure. It's called wideleft.football. If you're interested in checking that out, I'm kind of curious about it right now. Yeah, this is just Arif Hassan, Wide Left Football. But the title of the article is, What is Happening to PFF? Says Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo have announced the departures from Pro Football Focus, the company they've been the face of for years. Is the foundational football data company in trouble? I talked about this before because, when that happened, that was a big deal. Sam Monson, Steve Palazzolo, some of the biggest PFF guys, you always see them everywhere, and they are leaving. So this is the part that really bothers me because, again, I've been a proponent of PFF since the early days. I remember when PFF was a very different website. Like, you kind of had all the data. Like, it was pretty expensive, but you got everything. There was one subscription you could get, and it wasn't quite as clean and comprehensive as it is now, but it was pretty cool. It was a cool thing. I remember using it for like betting data and whatnot. It was pretty cool. They showed like the plus and minus for each player and all that kind of stuff. It was interesting stuff. Things are certainly changing, and not for the good. Part of it we've talked about before. One of the things that we've mentioned is the fact that there's a big difference. I mean, there's kind of different categories altogether, right? A lot of people just hate PFF as a broad category. Some people look at it and say PFF's data, their stats are good, their grades are garbage. I think that's probably even maybe the largest group. I kind of look at it as three different camps. You've got the media side, the grade side, and the data side. Data being, statistical side. I do think that the grades are tied into statistics, but I believe that they are separate entities altogether. The media side, to me, has always been a joke, and I feel like the media side has made the data side look stupid because they say a lot of stupid stuff that even their own data doesn't agree with, which, first of all, the contradictory nature of it makes your company look stupid, right? If you guys don't even believe in your own data, why should anybody else? If you're not using your own data, why would anybody else? Even if people don't necessarily know that there's a contradiction because they don't use it, they just see you saying stupid stuff and they're like, see, this is why PFF is stupid. If I go look at it and say your data says something else, I can't even defend you. I can't even defend you because not only did you say something stupid, but if I point out that PFF doesn't even believe that, how does that defend you? So the media side has always been stupid. Social media and the videos they put out and everything else. Even though guys like Palazzolo, they actually do a really good job. They say some insightful stuff. If you ever watch their show, they're some of the few media people that actually do have a deep understanding of a lot of teams and their players. They can speak fluently about a lot of different teams and players. You listen to some of the other media guys, they have no idea. They don't know anything about the Packers or anything else. It's kind of embarrassing. As hard as it is to know 32 teams and their rosters and their coaching staffs and everything else, that is your job, and if you can't do it and then you pretend to speak about it, that's not great. But anyways, that's sort of the backdrop of this, at least for me. I like the back end side, the stat collecting for sure. The grades I know are not perfect. I know there's a lot of flaws, but it's really nice because it's the only place you can go where you can get a snapshot of all players across the league, and you maybe allow for a little bit of grace or build in some buffer in your own head of these things aren't perfect, but generally the high-graded guys are the good guys, the low-graded guys are the bad guys. And there's been data to suggest and show all this, that there is correlation between certain stats and whatnot in PFF. And PFF is maybe not the best tool, but there's, I hate even bringing it up because I'm going to say it wrong, and somebody's going to tell me that it's wrong. ELO, LO, ELO, whatever the heck it's called, I think is also a thing that is used that is quite high, probably better than PFF. But PFF is good. It's not as though there's no correlation. It's a relatively high correlation. But there are problems with PFF, and those problems are continually getting worse. In other words, the product today that maybe isn't great is probably significantly worse than it was several years ago when it was better. Let me read through a couple of these bullet points. It's an unbelievably long article, so rather than spend the entire day going through all of it, I do want to go through some of these charts and whatnot later. But of course, I just had my friend, the robot, kind of summarize this. So let's go through it real quick. Number 1. PFF has experienced significant turnover, losing many key employees. The company is divided into two main parts, the consumer-facing side and the business-to-business side. They do work with bigger businesses. Obviously, they work with the NFL. They work with individual teams, all that kind of stuff. Silver Lake invested $50 million for a 31.25% stake of PFF, valuing the company at $160 million. The investment pushed PFF to focus more on the growth and broad appeal, potentially at the expense of their core analytics and strengths. And a lot of people, having read the article, I know a lot of people at the company really, really hate this. They really hate that they're being pushed away from their core, which was the data gathering. That's what this company started as. It was a data company that collected massive amounts of data and graded everybody and did a lot of really good stuff. And now they're being pushed more and more into a media company. George Chirari, I guess that's right. George Chirari, former director of consumer products, was fired due to toxic management practices, but allegedly still consults for the company. So this was actually a big story in the article. So this George guy apparently was horrific. I'm talking terrible, horrible, borderline evil human being. Charging up and down the halls, just, treating people terribly. Well, apparently, for whatever reason, I forget who it is, one of the main guys over there, I think he's one of the guys on TV. What the heck is his name? I don't know. The guy that invested in PFF real early, he's now like the owner, part owner, major owner, whatever. Obsessed with this Chirari. He sees him as like a business guru, so he doesn't want to let him go. So really, he was quote-unquote fired, but really all they did was kind of move him away from other people, but he's still directing or is largely in control of the direction of PFF. It says there's tension between maintaining PFF's reputation for deep analytics and appealing to a broader audience. The company changed its grading system to be more like Madden ratings, which some view as less informative. I mentioned a long time ago, they used to have more of the plus-minus things. You would see Kenny Clark had a minus 1.5, this guy had a plus 2.5, whatever, and then they changed it to Madden grades. PFF's B2B side, which provides detailed stats and video to NFL teams, has been more profitable but may face increasing competition. The company's culture has suffered, with reports of poor management and questionable decision-making. Despite challenges, PFF still has talented individuals and potential for growth, particularly in fantasy sports and draft coverage. The departure of Monson and Palazzolo marks the end of an era for PFF, leaving the company at a crossroads. One of the things they really delve into is that whole Silver Lake thing, which, we talked about this with NFL teams, and there is some risk of this being a thing too. There's some studies, and they put this little study in here, decline in quality when private equity gets involved. So when a private equity company comes in and, as I said, buys 31.5%, they talked about, this is most felt in healthcare, where they come in, they start cutting everybody's pay, the fraud things go up, like everything's awful. And so they show you like the decline in quality right after these private equity firms come in, pointing to the fact that that's probably happening at PFF too, potentially going to happen in NFL teams too, hopefully not. But, of course, they don't have any voting power. It doesn't freaking matter. They have an equity stake. They own part of the company. They expect a return, and they're going to be down your throat 24/7, pushing you to make more money. And by the way, if you don't, they're going to exit, and you're not going to have anybody else buy back in. Even talks about, the fact of dumbing it down. As Collar notes, tapping into the market of millions of football consumers would require broadening PFF's appeal, moving beyond the football nuts to the average Sunday night football viewer, which the NFL has done this at a large scale, which I don't like. If you're a hardcore football fan, it's going to be less appealing to you. Like, you get football, and there are ways to nerd out on football, but everything is pushing toward a broad audience, which I understand, right? It's the appealing to the most amount of people. But man, even NFL entertainment and everything else is so just dumbed down and stupid all the time. But they bring up a good point. If PFF is trying to dumb down their information, why would somebody pay a high-level price for a PFF subscription? They phrase it as, why would someone cruising for surface-level information pay for PFF? You can't both be a surface-level, we're just kind of playing it cool, no big deal company, and also you have to pay a ton of money for this hardcore data. There's a paragraph right here that points out exactly what I've been saying for years. The social media platform turned from one that leaned into PFF's strengths as a company that can provide calculated, even cold, evaluation of players using their access to minutia, to a platform that tweeted out highlights, speculation, memes, and unalloyed engagement bait. It says it didn't start with private equity, but Silver Lake accelerated it. This is who I was thinking of. PFF has battled with the question ever since Collinsworth bought it. Collinsworth is the guy I was thinking of. He bought it, and I think he's the one that really wants that psychopath to run things. They talk about, why the old grading system was significantly better. They called it the J.J. Watt problem, which he says would go on to be the Aaron Donald problem, in that it really doesn't do justice to the massive difference between elite players and not elite players. And they show the side-by-side differences. They have the old grading system, which had raw PFF grades back in 2013. J.J. Watt's grade was a 111.6. The next highest was Gerald McCoy, 57.3. And then at the bottom, you had a negative 28.5. So it really did a good job of actually showing how good. But then when you get the Madden grades, now J.J. Watt had a 93.2. The next highest, Gerald McCoy, 84.5. Now, there's still like a gap, but it's a very minor gap. And the lowest is a 34.8. So everybody's kind of high. It's a really gradual grade down. It doesn't give you the real picture. And because they're so stupid at business, just listen to this. There have been rumblings among those familiar with the B2B operations that their public presence, including a Twitter account that's tweeted out brand-damaging nonsense clickbait, inhibited some of their efforts. And then they show an example where it says Joe Flacco coming for the QB1 job or whatever. The bottom line is, why would a professional football team pay for some hardcore analytic data from a company that's so stupid? Their brand is being damaged by their attempts to be like this cool, hip, trendy, like we say cool, crazy, wild stuff. It's admittedly difficult to convince a football team to buy data from a company whose public presence doesn't seem to understand football. Wide Left has confirmed that this has impacted their relationship with teams. So you got people on the B2B side trying to sell a pretty solid product, and they can't do it because teams look at PFF, and teams have responded to it, but they largely respond to the other side of it, saying these guys are idiots. Given that the B2B has been more profitable, the more profitable side by a good margin, it'd be an odd priority if it wasn't for this pressure from Silver Lake to tap into the unlimited consumer market. So these people are saying there's too much money to not be going out and trying to get it. So they're pushing. And then you're actually hurting the business that's actually profitable. So it's not good enough to be profitable. They need to be more profitable than they were last year and the year before that, and so on. The mandate for growth has undermined the product, while the management has driven out the talent to produce good content. Even their B2B team has been gutted. Palazzolo was a big part of their early B2B push, with Drummond, who was critical to creating a product that teams actually wanted to use. Their chief engineer, Jeff Lane, was an enormous component to keep their back end running. So was Ian Perks, the first ever employee of PFF had that they brought on. They're all gone. People who worked in both worlds, content and B2B, are also gone, as is their pipeline of talent in that arena. Eric Eager, was considered one of the most prominent public-facing data scientists in football, and they couldn't hold on to him. Eager had many times received offers from teams or other organizations, often for more money than what PFF could provide. He ultimately left not because Sumer Sports, later the Carolina Panthers, offered a better compensation package, which they did, but because Eager felt manipulated by the company and could no longer trust those at the top, according to Collar's book. How insane to have one of the most brilliant data minds working for you, even though you're paying less because he believes in your mission. He's getting offers from NFL football teams offering to pay way more money, and he's saying no because he's loyal to your company and he's proud of what they've built. And finally he left. Not because it was more money, but because he feels like he's being manipulated by people who bought into a product and ruined it. I mean, it pisses me off because I'm also a consumer and a believer in PFF. I'm excited about it. Just like I was excited about SIS when they came on board, and still am, and I think they're going to continue to grow, just like I love NFL Pro and all these other things. And I think the competition is good, the fact that a lot of people are popping up. Because at the end of the day, if PFF can't get their crap together, they're going to go out of business, and they should. They should. I've been a big proponent of PFF for a long time. But if they continue down this path because they're being driven by morons, then they should go out of business. And companies like, NFL Pro and SAS and Sumer Sports and all these guys, they should take over. They should take over the space. Maybe it is time for PFF to die. If you can't even tell me who gave up a sack on a play where the right tackle didn't move in time, and he whiffed on even touching Rashawn Gary, who sacked the quarterback after 2.5 seconds, you don't know who did it? You're going to blame that on Jalen Hurts? What are we frickin' doing here? And again, a lot of companies are coming in and they're hungry, and there's a lot that is not being touched by PFF, and they're going to have better reputations. This little paragraph here, but we're increasingly seeing companies enter the space that are entirely independent of PFF that teams are interested in, including Sumer Sports, who Eric Eager left PFF for. StatsBomb has entered the market with AI-accelerated player tracking and a history of strong performance in the European soccer analytics department. That's the other thing. We got so much technology now. Like PFF started with like this hand counting stuff, which is great. You got dozens and dozens of people who are like recording things by hand. That's crazy, and that's cool. But guess what? There's a lot of stuff like SIS. I remember way back in the day, they have like software where they're tracking all this stuff. That's why they wanted you to be in-house, I think somewhere out in Ohio, like Cleveland or something, at the time. Now it's not that way necessarily, but like you had to be there and they would train you on their technology, and technology is booming. I appreciate PFF, man. They've done a lot for this program, but they have got to step it up. It's going to be far too easy for people to just step in and replace them, especially with, again, all the technology and the AI. And, if they're still doing pen to paper, Excel spreadsheets, doing all this stuff, which I appreciate to some extent. Look, there's a lot of people stepping it up and pretty jacked about it. But it's going to be sad if PFF kind of just falls by the wayside, because they were the innovators. They were kind of the first ones to really get in and do it at a massive scale, and then give it to us to be. It radically transformed my ability to understand football, and I really, really, really appreciate them for that. But this is upsetting. Anyways, now that I've just spent that time unleashing on PFF. We're going to take a break and come back and look at PFF. Look, I stand by what I said. It's still going to be a tool that's better than what Twitter is, which is I watched the game and I saw 2 cool plays and I know that they were good and therefore I know PFF is wrong. Like, no, that ain't going to cut it for me. But, it's just this year we'll be sure to add in all these other tools and be able to hopefully fill in some of the blanks, create a fuller picture, and plus it'll give you the opportunity to ignore what you want to ignore and take in what you want to take in and form your own opinions, which I've always said. I'm going to give you the information. I'm not going to try to tell you. I'm going to strongly tell you what I think, but you feel free to form your own opinions. But yeah, we'll take a break. Probably going to have to be our second break. I ranted for quite a while. I'll just slide one in somewhere. And then come back and look at some of the things about the Eagles that'll make us feel hopefully a little better about our performance. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So I was interested to see this. I pointed out some of the stats that were pretty good. Obviously, a lot of it's got to get cleaned up because at the end of the day, what matters is the score. But again, you look at we'll just go through more than I thought. The big thing that really shocked me when I looked at the Eagles' statistics, and the only reason I was even digging is because I was trying to figure out who gave up the sack. So I'm just digging around trying to find it, and I was shocked to find this. Jalen Hurts, very good quarterback. If you look at, let's just go back to, his overall grade so far. Rookie year, he didn't play a ton, so we don't have to worry about it. Year 2, he takes over, 77 grade. Not bad. Next year, 88. Next year, 87. Like, he has just hung in that range, 2022 and 2023. He's been solid. His lowest grade, and I think I mentioned this before with Jalen and some of the other guys, I think CJ Stroud too, they don't quite have the ceiling that Love does. They don't have as many 90 games, but they're real consistent. So his lowest graded game last year was a 53.4 against the Giants, right? That was way at the end of the season. 2022, his lowest graded game was a 49.8, again, against the Giants. Now, remember, these are division rivals, so you almost even want to discard that a little bit, but, we'll call it what it is. And then his first year as a starter, the wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was his worst. It was a 45.3 grade. So that's his lowest grade ever, 45.3. It was in his first year. It was a playoff game against a scary Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Do you know what his grade was against the Packers defense? Jalen Hurts' grade was a 29.8. It was by far the worst game Jalen Hurts has ever played in his entire life. Now, we could chalk it up to field condition or whatever the case may be, but holy crap. First of all, Jalen, remember, they did a fantastic job of containing him. He didn't run anywhere. And then as a passer, 34 attempts for 278 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had 2 big-time throws, which is 5.6%, 4 turnover-worthy plays. Shame on the Packers defense for not capitalizing on that, by the way. Nearly 10%, 1 in 10 of his passes was potentially picked off. So, yeah, NFL passer rating of 80.3 isn't great, but they gave him a 33.3 passing grade and a 41.2 rushing grade and a 34.4 fumble grade. Absolutely terrible. The other interesting thing, he had a 73 grade when he was kept clean, but a 20.6 PFF grade when he was under pressure. So he was terrible while under pressure. But here's the good thing. Guess how often he was under pressure? 41% of the time. That's a lot, folks. There's been a lot of talk about there was no pressure on Jalen Hurts. Bull crap. 41% is high. That's really high. The Packers defense brought pressure a ton. So out of his 39 dropbacks, 16 of them, he was under pressure. 13 attempts, 4 completions for 49 yards and a pick. 0 big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy plays. This is a disruptive defense. Now, again, Jalen did a fantastic job of getting the ball out quick, in rhythm, on time. You bring extra guys and the guy gets home, and in 1.2 seconds, he gets the ball out to a guy. That's really impressive. And that's, you can get mad at the defense all you want. That's one of those things where you go, that's just not supposed to happen. And I think that's why they started to back off a little bit, because it just, despite being successful in terms of getting to the quarterback quickly, he was able to manage that. But, and again, when there was no pressure, he did a good job. 73 PFF grade, 72 passing grade, 62 rushing grades, 76 fumble grades. We obviously didn't fumble in that play or whatever, but he was terrible under pressure, and he was under pressure all day long. And then everybody doing victory laps on Saquon Barkley. I mean, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns is pretty impressive. They gave him a 57 rushing grade. I'm just saying. Now, yeah, he had a big day, but how much of that is elite Saquon Barkley compared to, I don't know, Kenny Clark slipped, face planted, and there was a giant hole for him to run through. And 4.5 yards per attempt is not the greatest thing in the world. As a team, 3.8 yards per attempt. That's it. That's all they had. And I also mentioned how bad our defense looked. Their defense looks pretty similar. I really think week 1 plus field conditions, especially defensive line, because they're in the same... Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. Well, nobody had a good day for defensive tackles. They had 4 players. I think we had like 2 or 3. They have 4 players that had good grades. Darius Slay, 71, Zach Bond, 76, Brandon Graham, 77, and then safety Reed Blankenship had a 90 PFF grade. Then they had 4 more players that were in the 60s, and they were low 60s, and then it's all 59 and below. So out of their 19 players, 11 of them were below a 60. You had 8 of them that were low 50s or lower. So Jordan Davis, talented defensive tackle, 53 with a 22 tackling grade. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 51 with a 38 run defense grade, 27 tackling grade. Nolan Smith had a 50.7 linebacker. Defensive tackle Thomas Booker, 49. Outside linebacker Bryce Huff, 47. That's the guy they went out and paid a bunch of money for to be a pass rusher. 47 PFF grade, 0 pressures, by the way. 0. Avonte Maddox, corner, 44. Jalen Carter, one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, had a 30 PFF grade. And Nakobe Dean, the linebacker that came in to replace whoever it was that got hurt, 29 PFF grade. Jalen Carter is starting off the season with a 30 PFF grade. Just saying. It was all run defense, right? And again, everybody struggled with that. So part of this is be happy in some of the things that happened. There were a lot of positives and a lot of negatives caused by the Green Bay Packers. There's also a sense of just look around the league at how much people struggled. Not everybody, right? The Chiefs look beyond scary. They didn't seem to have any issues week 1. But there were a lot of people that you would expect to be better that were really not exactly tearing it up, right? So if you look at the top quarterbacks, a lot of things are kind of in the order that you would expect. Some of them, you expect some correction. So Sam Darnold being number 2, that's going to get worked out, right? Baker is number 6. Anthony Richardson is number 8, largely because of rushing. Justin Fields is 10th, which I pray that he just gets better and better. Please let him keep playing. Please let him get better. Oh, and by the way, dude, Justin Fields, 77 passing grade, 63 rushing grade. He did it through the air. Go, Justin! Let's go! 17 attempts, 73.9% completion rate, 156 passing, no picks, 3 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays. Let's go, Justin! Let's go, big dog! Dang. But anyways, then you get, after Justin Fields, Kyler Murray 11, Trevor Lawrence 12, Josh Allen 13, CJ Stroud 14, Lamar Jackson 15, Jordan Love 16, Joe Burrow 17. Like that pile right there, those are guys that got off to a little bit of a rough start. They're going to pick it up. Right? Dak Prescott right now was one of the best quarterbacks in football. He was 21st. Herbert, 22nd. Just above Daniel Jones, who is above Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff, 28th. I don't know what he did to piss off PFF, but holy cow. I thought he was doing a good job based on what had happened or whatever, but 217, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 0 touchdowns, 2 turnover-worthy plays. Jared Goff is one of the Jalen Hurts, by the way, lowest graded quarterback in football right now after what the Packers did to him. Just saying. Below Bryce Young, which is impossible. But again, Kirk Cousins, 29th. Don't think that'll stay that way. Jared Goff, 28th. Caleb, 26th. Hope that stays that way and gets worse. So, a lot of weird stuff. It's week 1. A lot of goofiness. A lot of people on new teams like Cousins. A lot of weirdness. Weird fields in weird countries. No offense. I don't mean weird Brazil. You know what I mean. A foreign as in unusual. Super dope country that puts flame on meat and changed my life. Dude, I want to make a picanha again so bad. You guys got to come over, man. I'm going to have everybody from the podcast over, and we're going to make a bunch of picanhas, and I'm going to, because I don't want to feel crazy. I want you to eat it and be like, tell me I'm not crazy right now, that's amazing. Anyways, I'm sorry. A lot of stuff to get worked out. By the way, on the positive side, if frickin' Sam Darnold can be the best quarterback in football, why can't we have the best quarterback in football? You know what? You know what it is? Vikings fans willed this into existence. They kept saying, what if Sam Darnold is not just, remember I read you that article? What if he's not just good? What if he's elite? And I laughed at him, and now I look like an idiot? We just got to will it into existence, bro. I think that's all stupid, but Aaron Rodgers says it works, so it must do something. Malik Willis will be not just good, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be great. Let's start it right now. This is what we're going to do the rest of the show. Malik Willis, hype train, starts today. Start with my boy over at Walter Football. As a passer, Willis has some impressive arm talent. He can really spin the ball and shows no problems pushing the ball vertically down the field. The football jumps out of his hand, and he has easy arm strength to rifle passes with just a flick of the wrist. On top of the arm strength, Willis shows nice ability to loft in touch passes downfield. He can put air under the ball and drop it in. Some big arm quarterbacks become so dependent on their arm strength that they throw flat passes. But Willis has avoided this trap, displaying touch pass ability to go along with being able to fire fastballs with serious velocity. Willis has a quick release and can make plays off script. In fact, some team sources said that a lot of Willis's best tape came from when things would break down and he could scramble and throw deep down the field. With his arm strength and touch pass ability, Willis demonstrates impressive deep ball accuracy in 2020. Don't worry about the year. His arm talent has a lot of NFL evaluators and coaches very intrigued. To go along with his big arm, Willis is a true dual threat quarterback, is a dangerous runner. He has the quickness to dart upfield and good speed for a signal caller, letting him accelerate further while running away from defenders. With his athletic scrambling ability and big arm, Willis is dangerous at ad-libbing and can create big plays on rollouts, making plays off script and backyard football is an en vogue trait in the NFL, and Willis showed a similar ability with Liberty. As a runner, Willis is tough and will lower his shoulder and run through contact. He will need to cut down on that, however, to avoid injury at the next level. I'm just saying, dude, this guy's going to be good. Oh, by the way, player comparison, Jalen Hurts. Willis has some limitations as a passer in terms of seeing the field. Don't even worry about it. Blah, blah, blah. Both have good dual threat skill set of mobility to go with arm talent. In the NFL, Willis could end up being a quarterback similar to Hurts. Some team sources have also compared him to Tyrod Taylor. I think Hurts is certainly more accurate. No offense to Terod, but, you know. By the way, 40 time, 4.42. 4.42 40 time. NFL Draft Buzz says, Willis possesses the best athletic ability of any quarterback prospect in this year's class without a doubt. He's strong, has a powerful running style, is super fast and elusive, with probably the strongest arm in the class. Don't need to read the rest. That's all you need to know. Goes on to say he will likely be selected in the mid to late first round of 2022. Now, I said that was nonsense, and it ended up being nonsense. But still, that was the consensus view. Funny enough, there's an article here by Matt Waldman who does fantastic work. I mean, you would talk about in-depth stuff. He did a quarterback Malik Willis scouting profile, comparison spectrum, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, and then just X would be sort of the other end of the spectrum. I don't know exactly what that means. But interesting, he talks about how a lot of people liken him to Josh Allen, and the idea behind Willis is, hey, if Josh Allen can develop from just this raw thing with a cannon for an arm, then maybe Malik Willis can too. And then a little bit further on, it says, where did it go? Denver tried it with Drew Lock. Green Bay tried it with Jordan Love, and New York might be thinking Zach Wilson is the guy. All three might develop into starters, but the gap they have to travel just to become competent starters is as great as the gap between a competent starter and an elite passer. It's funny because one of those examples of a team that really believes in themselves and their ability to develop something really impressive but super raw was the Green Bay Packers. And they did it. And by the way, it looked like it was a massive failure for many, many years. Jordan, I mean, let's just be completely honest. He looked terrible, and every time we looked at him, every training camp, every time he stepped onto the field, the first time it was like, holy crap, was against the Eagles. It was like, oh, please let this be a thing. So, you know, again, I'm not saying I'm necessarily a believer, but sometimes it works, and the Packers are one of the few teams that took a swing and was patient enough, and it panned out. Josh Allen being another one. I mean, they weren't patient with him, but, you know, they figured out how to develop him over, 3 years or so? I think his first 2 years were really rough. He's sitting right here. Let me look at him. Josh Allen, yeah, it was year 3. He was never terrible necessarily, but as far as the grades are concerned, he was kind of mid, looking like he was just never going to pan out. And then year 3, 90.3 grades when he just exploded. But again, similar to Jordan Love. So it makes sense that the same team that's like, bro, we did it with Jordan. What if? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, these other teams couldn't develop him. He sucked. I don't give a crap. They went out and got Dillard. Seemed like they got some decent results from Dillard. I'm not saying he's going to be a great player, but this is the year of let's go get all the guys that are massively talented and just see what we can do. Why not? Why freaking not? Why can't Malik be the next Jordan Love? You know how many people said Jordan Love is trash? Look at his college career. Look what he's doing in the pros. For every reason, the guy's garbage. And fair enough. There wasn't a ton to come back with. There wasn't a ton. Other than you're being short-sighted and it's not impossible and he's got the talent. He's just got to kind of harness it, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think most people expected Jordan to be what he is, aside from the people in Green Bay who picked him up. So, now again, it's not as though these all are exactly the same thing. Like Drew Lock is the exact same talent as Zach Wilson and Jordan Love and Josh Allen and Malik Willis. Like they're all the same guy. There's a spectrum of potential, and they're all different in their own way. I mean, even Jalen Hurts, he's a late second-round guy for a reason. Jalen Hurts was similar to Malik Willis. Like, there's some unbelievable tools here, but might not go very well. And again, his first year didn't grade out super good. Year 2, got better. Year 3, now he's that dude. He goes on to talk about how they're different, right? Willis is not the next Allen. He says, what I find fascinating is that I haven't seen any comparisons between Willis and Lamar Jackson. The difference in arm talent is probably the most logical reason. Jackson throws for distance, but his lack of velocity is a big reason why the Ravens have a unique offensive system. Although Allen is a rushing threat, he's not a breakaway runner. Jackson and Willis are. There's also another reason why Willis isn't generating the Jackson comparison. Jackson was far more advanced of a thrower of the ball and pocket manager than either Allen or Willis. So they're kind of looking more at the rawness, but I think what he's looking at is sort of, you know, the upside. You're looking at more of a Lamar Jackson than you are a Josh Allen. He talks about a lot of the negatives with Willis, obviously, that have the reason why I and a lot of people weren't buying the hype, the reason why he wasn't buying the hype, the reason why he probably hasn't developed into something up to this point. But after acknowledging that, he says, if Willis can mature in each of these areas of football, there are tremendous physical gifts within his game to unlock. Willis throws the ball with velocity like Alex Smith, who had Gil Brandt proclaiming to major media that it was the best pro day he ever saw. He'll impress every time he gets to throw against air. He already vowed beat writers at the Combine, which obviously has already passed. The team that drafts Willis will need to provide patience and structure because Willis is more potential than reality. He's better at reading leverage with man-to-man coverage than zone, which plays well into the ways the NFL likes to generate big plays in the passing game. And with Willis' skills as a runner, he'll make it difficult for teams to remain in zone coverage if they can't generate pressure with 7-9 players dropping back. And that's, again, this is kind of what I talked about before with why go with Malik as opposed to some of the other guys, including going out and finding another old, washed-up pocket passer. And I think it's this. I think it's one of those things where it's like he doesn't. It's what I always said about MVS. MVS wasn't a good football player, but you always had to account for him. You had to game plan for him because no matter what, he has the speed. You can't ignore him because you can't let him get behind you. So as annoying as it is that we have to stretch the field because of that frickin' guy, you have to. Because if you don't, they're going to uncork it to him. And if they can connect on it, they're just going to kill you. So, I mean, you have to account for it. Same thing with Malik. It's you want to be able to just say, oh, this is going to be easy. He has limitations. It's not. Because now you have to worry about contain as opposed to pressure. You have to worry about playing zone instead of man. You're worried about, you play in man, you get these guys' back turned around, then all of a sudden he's taking off and running. So now we got to be in zone. That simplifies the field for him. Whereas other guys, it's not going to be that simple. You got to worry about bringing extra guys or dropping guys or all. There's a lot of complexity, not because he's even good, but just based on his physicality. He's really fast and he can launch the ball all the way down the field. That stretches the field by itself. Whether or not he can execute is a separate issue. We still have to figure out how to defend against a premier athletic talent like this. That makes the job easier for him and makes the job easier for Matt LaFleur to be able to get guys wide open for him to hopefully allow him to execute at a higher level. At least I'm imagining that's the game plan. But again, there's a lot of people who really liked him coming out. I think, the regular season's been rough. Honestly, in the preseason, he's actually done quite well. Year one, he had a 63 grade, but then it went 2023, 77, 2024, 77. So at least in the preseason, he's shown some growth. This 2024 preseason, 20 completions, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. 1 big-time throw, 0 turnover-worthy plays, which means that pick was not his fault. It must have got tipped or something. 104.7 passer rating, which is by far the best. His previous highest passer rating was the year before. It was a 79. So who's to say, man? Who's to say 2024 isn't the year that he takes a step? Year 3, Matt LaFleur getting his hands on him. It's not like Tennessee was necessarily known for having the most brilliant offensive minds. Defense, maybe, not necessarily offense.